Welcome, welcome. We're very excited to have you here today for our Positive Peace workshop. So before we jump in, I just want to do some quick housekeeping. Today we'll be using some tools in Zoom and beyond Zoom. You may need to update Zoom to the latest version in order to access all these tools. If you need to update, I'd highly recommend you do it right now and then rejoin the session. We'll have to let you back in, but we can do that. In Zoom, we'll be using polls and the chat box at certain points. And then towards the end of our presentation, we will be using AHA slides, but we'll explain to you at that time how to use it. We do kindly ask during the presentation that you keep your microphone muted if you're not talking, and this is just to minimize background noise or distractions. Really quickly, many thanks to Stephanie Velasco. She is our tech support, so feel free to put any issues you might be having with Zoom into the chat box, and she'll do her best to help you out. So let's get started. Again, thank you so much. We're very excited that you are here with us today. In order to get started, I want to introduce the team that will be training you today. My name is Summer Lewis. I'm a Rotary Peace Fellow, and I coordinate the partnership between Rotary and the Institute for Economics and Peace. And let me introduce the rest of the team that'll be helping us out today. Jim Halderman is past district governor, the chair of District 5450 Peace Committee, ombudsman for District 5450, and Rotary Positive Peace Activator. Scott Martin is a Rotary Peace Fellow, Rotarian, and Rotary Positive Peace Activator, and he currently coordinates the partnership between Rotary and Mediators Beyond Borders International. Stephanie Velasco is a Rotaractor, Rotarian, and Rotary Positive Peace Activator. And Patricia Shafer is a Rotary Peace Fellow, Rotarian, and Rotary Positive Peace Activator. She's a senior fellow for peace education at the Alliance for Peace Building, as well as executive director of New Gen Peace Builders, a peace education program engaging young people ages 14 to 24. Thanks to Patricia, we have Elizabeth Peacock and Stephanie Suster, as well as a host of New Gen Peace Builders with us today. In addition to Footprint App Incorporated, an organization addressing climate change through tracking and reducing carbon footprints. So all of these folks will be helping to facilitate our workshop breakout session during the second half of our workshop. Now, as we get started, we'd like to get a feel for everyone's level of familiarity with the concept of positive peace. So I've launched a poll. How familiar are you with the concept of positive peace? And I'd like to give you a few seconds to fill this out so we can get a sense for where people are at. Again, this is not a test. Any response is appropriate and acceptable. Okay, I'll give about 5 more seconds. I'm showing a lot of people here have voted. Okay. So let's see where we're at. So it looks like we have a whole range of levels of familiarity with positive peace, and this is really great. We really hope today that we'll have something for everyone, that whether you're new to this concept or you feel like you know a lot about it, we really hope that you'll be able to take something away from this workshop. And in fact, that is the goal of our workshop, is for you to leave with 5 ways to talk about positive peace in your community, club, or district. So in other words, our workshop today simulates a live mini training on positive peace, and it should provide a sort of template for you to go out and replicate if you wish. All resources that we mention or refer to during this session will be shared during the meeting via a link to a downloadable document in the chat box. We will also do our best to share this with zone organizers to be shared after the Zone Institute. So what exactly are we going to be doing today? Our workshop is divided into 2 sections, and each section is an hour long. In the first section, or the first hour, we'll start off with a centering exercise. Next, we'll see and talk more about the Rotary IEP partnership and the Rotary Positive Peace Activator Program. Then we'll cover some of the core content, explaining positive peace and negative peace, as well as the pillars of positive peace. If time permits, we'll have some questions and answers. Then we'll move to a quick break to give you a chance to stretch, move around. After the break, we'll move into section 2. And in section 2 is where we get to be really interactive. We'll launch into applying the concepts learned in section 1 to a real world situation. You'll get to participate in breakout sessions. Then we'll provide some information on resources available to you. And finally, we'll wrap everything up with some feedback from you. If time permits, at the end of the session, we'll open up for further questions and answers. So let's go ahead and get started. And to get us all centered, grounded, and present for our time together today, we have Martin, who's going to do a centering exercise with all of us.
Yeah, thank you, Summer. To the extent possible, if you do have a ability to turn your camera on, I would invite everyone to turn their camera on just for this moment so that we can see each other and be connected. Let's be an integral part of this exercise. And so I'll start off. So I'm Martin. I'm logging in from Southern California on the traditional lands of the Tungva people, as are we all, logging in from the places where we are. And so I want you to, for one moment, think about where we are logging in from, the land we're logging in from. And I've been asked to also connect us with our inner pillar of peace in this moment. And so I'd like to invite you to find a comfortable spot in your seat, maybe adjust yourself just slightly. If you can figure out how to get your feet on the ground, go ahead and lift your shoulders up and roll them back. Sit in a place where you can place your hands on your knees and go ahead and close your eyes. A couple easy breaths, nothing forced, nothing fancy. Just a couple easy clearing breaths. As you continue to breathe, I'd like you to tap the tops of your knees in unison. Slide your hands to the side of your knees. Continue to tap in unison. Find your breath. Continue tapping. As you breathe in, start to alternate the tapping. Left, right, left, right. Continue your alternated tapping as again, focusing on your breath, allowing the tapping to be automatic. Now on your next breath, I want you to take a deep breath in and hold it. Hold your breath, creating a stillness so still that you can find your heart beating. As you're holding your breath, feel the way your heart beating gently jostles your body. Feel that vibration and release. Now connect again to the tapping as you continue breathing. Feel the way those vibrations travel through your body. Continue tap in unison. Now imagine the way those vibrations exit your body, entering the space around you. Imagine everyone on this call tapping in unison, the vibration being shared with our environments, shared with each other, Take a last deep breath in together. And when you're ready, please open your eyes. Continue tapping for a moment. Connect to the inner peace inside of yourself. Connect with all the peace builders on this call. One last deep breath in together. And thank you.
Thank you, Martin. So it's such a great way to start a session, considering that everything we're going to be talking about today has to do with peace. So thank you for helping to get us grounded, to calm, to focus and reflect. So as we think about internal and external peace, about what peace actually means, and in turn, what positive peace means, well, I would say that these are some of the questions that guide not just us, not just the Rotarians and Rotaractors in the room today, but Rotary as an organization. So I'd like to share now a video that delves a bit deeper into Rotary's peace work. Specifically, it's a video about Rotary's strategic partnership with the Institute for Economics and Peace.
Not since the end of World War II have we seen more people affected by conflict across the world. Peace has always been deemed an unattainable goal we could only dream about, until now. Rotary International and the Institute for Economics and Peace, a thought leader in peace and conflict resolution, are partnering on a mission to spread peace in our communities. The IEP is on the forefront of peace building. Their annual Global Peace Index, the world's leading measure of national peacefulness, measures and quantifies the economic value of peace across 163 nations, giving us the unprecedented opportunity to analyze unity and see where countries are succeeding and failing when it comes to developing formal concord. In addition, the IEP has developed a framework to help us better understand the most important drivers of sustainable peace, something we can all believe in. The well-being of the places we call home all depend on building positive peace, and by measuring this, we can begin to comprehend the factors that cause or damage peace building. The IEP has identified 8 factors that are associated with positive peace, which provide a strategy for conquering conflict and developing lasting tranquility. What makes this partnership so innovative is how the IEP's model for positive peace aligns with the good work Rotarians are already doing around the world. Through the 6 areas of focus, our members are taking action to address the underlying causes of conflict. The blueprint for peace is at our fingertips, and Rotarians are ready to make the impossible possible. But true peace can't be achieved by government officials alone. It's going to take a grassroots effort to spread peace, and we have the framework to do just that. Together, Rotary and IEP are creating an online curriculum that will further educate Rotarians and peace builders on positive peace, as well as how to take action in their own communities. These courses will give you the knowledge and tools to help spread goodwill, discover the underlying causes of conflict, and educate others on positive peace through workshops hosted by your club. Through this curriculum, you'll be able to initiate your own project or support an existing one, beginning the change we intend to make. As people of action with over 1.2 million members and over 35,000 clubs worldwide, Rotarians provide the perfect network to answer the call for a pioneering approach to peace building, something our world desperately needs. True peace is more than the absence of violence. It's educating the everyday volunteers and leaders of tomorrow on positive peace. It's the new partnership between Rotary and the IEP, and it starts with you. The impossible dream is calling. How will you respond? Use the curriculum to take action or start a project today.
So, pretty inspiring, eh? So I'm curious to know, as we move forward, prior to this session, did you know that Rotary has a strategic partnership with the Institute for Economics and Peace? I've launched another poll here. to hear quickly from you, if you were aware of this or not. Okay, got some votes coming in here. And okay, so I see most of you have responded, and it looks like about 65% of you were aware of the partnership between Rotary and IEP, and about 35% were not. So this is very interesting, and it's great that you're here because we'd like to share a little bit more about this strategic partnership before we jump into the core content today. So Rotary, as many of you may know, has been deeply involved in peace building since its very founding. From sitting at the table at the UN Charter Conference in 1945 to collaborating on the creation of UNESCO, to commanding high-level consultative status in the UN Economic and Social Council today, Rotary has been recognized and is recognized and respected for their deep commitment to peace as an international humanitarian organization. The Rotary Foundation and Rotarians worldwide foster peace by supporting thousands of projects and programs in all of Rotary's areas of focus. And these areas of focus align with the United Nations Development Goals, the Sustainable Development Goals, which address some of humanity's most pressing issues. Of particular note for our session today, the peace building and conflict prevention area of focus supports Rotarians' work in community level training in conflict prevention and mediation, youth peace building programs, socioeconomic initiatives in conflict ridden regions, and fellowships and scholarships for promising global leaders. The concept of peace, however, it can be difficult to define or grasp, and Rotary has recognized this. Thus, Rotary began collaborating in 2016 with the Institute for Economics on Peace on various small-scale projects. And through that work together, it became evident that the two organizations could strengthen and enhance their respective peace work by joining forces. So combining Rotary's grassroots work among Rotarians in communities around the globe with IEP's empirical research on the attitudes, institutions, and structures of more peaceful societies. So a formal strategic partnership began in 2017. The partnership is really focused on education and community-based programming, providing tools for Rotarians and Rotaractors to better understand peace and to take concrete action in their communities towards building it. In order to accomplish this, in addition to providing tools, the partnership also created the Rotary Positive Peace Activator Program. So the Activator Program aims to develop an international network of peace builders to support Rotarians and Rotaractors in building positive peace in their communities. More specifically, the partnership plans to train 150 activators in 6 regions between 2019 and 2023. Activators who are equipped to train, educate, and accompany Rotarians in presentations, workshops, or projects. So the partnership hosted a USA and Canada cohort training in California in January of 2020. We trained 26 activators in that cohort, 4 of whom are here today presenting, and I believe we also have one in the audience. A Latin America training is taking place as we speak with 30 activators online, and regional trainings will take place in Europe, Africa, Asia Pacific, and Middle East, North Africa through 2023. So activators are Rotarians, Rotary Peace Fellows, Rotaractors, and other Rotary stakeholders. They are selected through a competitive process, attend an intensive 20-hour training on the positive peace methodology, and make a 2-year commitment to provide training, education, and support to Rotarians. So today we have activators Martin, Jim, Patricia, and Stephanie doing this work here today with us. Now, what I'd like to do is turn this workshop over to activator Jim Halderman, who will help us better understand positive peace and the pillars of positive peace.
I thank you, Summer, and I'm looking forward to this. I'm going to share some ideas about IEP for a little while, and then there's going to be an opportunity for questions. So I would ask you to, if you have any questions, to go ahead and put them in chat at any time, and then Stephanie will be sharing with them, and we'll talk about them at the end. But one of the first things that I want to do when we're going to talk about peace, ask you, we're going to do another poll. Do you believe world peace is possible? You can respond again in the poll and let me know your feeling. Do you believe there will be a time when there is no war? Is world peace possible? And that should be up for you now to go ahead and share your feeling on that.
It didn't come up. It just was the results. It didn't come up.
Got it? It will be up right. Should be up.
There, it is up. Thank you.
Is world peace possible? We're coming up. Some are taking a little longer to think about it. And we have a good number. So this is a good group. We're going to go ahead and end the poll, and I'm going to share with you. We have quite a few of you believe world peace is possible. We have quite a few that do not. In this group, maybe 60%. Typically what I find when I go to clubs, that in the area of 10% believe world peace is possible. But when we talk about that, let's come up with another idea. What on earth is peace? What do you think it is? There's 4 options. Come up with the very closest one. And again, the numbers are coming in good. And so we're going to end that poll, and I want to share with you that we have some results in all directions on this. Quite a few feel it's a feeling of secure, but lack of violence, feeling good about life. And we'll talk about that. So the answer to the first question, the reason I bring the first question up, when you look at the news today, it's hard to grasp the fact that, quite frankly, we are speaking in the most peaceful time ever. It's when you follow the news, it's pretty much impossible to grasp the fact that this truly is the most peaceful time at all times. 5 reasons for that is typically accepted. We have far more democracies. We have the globalization of commerce, and the computers that you're on typically represent about 8 different countries. The rise in feminization, including in Rotary, hurrah. The cosmopolitan of the world, we travel. You heard Rick Steves. Social media, Rotary e-clubs, youth exchange programs, VTTs, GSEs. So all of these things are creating a communication. And the 5th reason we're rising is the escalation of reason. Quite frankly, it is evidence that we are actually getting smarter. But another interesting thing is there are now thousands of organizations working to build peace. 50 years ago, there was up to maybe 20. There is just a whole nother variety, the whole new energy. And of course, Rotary has been a leader on this for over 100 years. If you study the history of Rotary and Peace, it's a fairly impressive history. And we're continuing that, and Rotary recognized the changes and want to once again be out in front. In 1999, we created the Peace Fellow Program, which has done phenomenal things. We have about 1,400 Peace Fellows working in many great things. But now in 2017, we partnered with IEP. So for many of you, this is new. What on earth is IEP and why should we care? Well, the founder of IEP is Steve Kilalea. And he was doing a lot of work in peace all over the country and do a lot of things. And realized, and being the engineer he was, he began to get curious on what creates peace. I began doing the research and realized that there are tons of books written on prevention of war. There's lots of books and programs on mediation. We are masters in conflict resolution. But what is it? What are those elements that build peace? And by the way, he's written a phenomenal book that just came out a few weeks ago. And Stephanie, I would ask you to put the name of the book in chat if you would. It's called Peace in an Age of Chaos. It talks a lot about in depth about the 8 pillars that we're going to talk about. It talks a lot about what it takes to build peace, a different focus, a different energy than what it takes to prevent war. So when Steve decided to do this, he worked with a cadre of educators from the universities, from the United Nations, from diplomats to try and figure out. And they analyzed over 4,000 markers in 163 different countries. And they saw trends, they saw patterns, and they saw that there were primarily 8 issues that created peace, that all of the countries that had sustaining peace had 8 things that were in common. And Rotary called those the 8 pillars. They systemically examine in our understanding the factors that drive peace. But first, to better understand the 8 pillars, I want to take a look at another concept. Johan Galtung, who is a Norwegian mathematician who is also considered the founder of the studies in positive peace, created the concepts of negative peace and positive peace. So in our first question, in our second question, what is peace? Many of you said no guns, no violence. Some of you said a peaceful, I feel secure. You were defining the difference in those answers in negative and positive peace. Negative peace is basically the absence of anything bad. Negative peace is no gun shooting, no severe violence. But forever, we have felt that once guns fall silent, there is peace. But now we know that that is not the case. Negative peace or no gun shooting is not sustainable. So what are those elements necessary to build peace? Steve went on, he identified what it takes. The Global Peace Index measures the direct violence, the absence of fear of violence. It measures domestic and internal conflict. It measures Social Security. It measures the level of militarization to come up with a number. And now IEP has been around a little over 13 years, and we already are beginning to see the phenomenal trends, how this works. And he realized to keep the peace, we must develop and build positive peace. Positive peace, as it says there in front of you, are the attitudes. Do you feel safe walking down the street at nighttime? Do you sleep with a gun nearby? I mean, what is your sense of feeling of security? What are the institutions that build peace? It could be faith-based organizations. It could be our educational programs. It could be our Rotarian programs. What are we doing in the schools that create an understanding of peace? What are the structures? What are the cultures that support diversity, that support justice? Are the government programs in support of proper justice? So what are these programs that build positive peace? One great way to understand those is through health. What if somebody had a heart attack and they run to the doctor and they're negative peace with the heart attack? The doctor works on them and is able to resuscitate them, and the individual is walking out healthy once again. But at that point, we're living in negative peace because we're still living in those characteristics that caused it. So now then, let's go back to physical therapy. Let's go back to the positive peace. What are the things we need to change in our life to maintain that health? It cut out smoking? Is it exercise? Is it diet? Is it eliminating the stress? So to help develop and better understand the positive peace, we come up with the 8 pillars. So let's take a look at what creates the 8 pillars and what they are. One of the things that is important to know, to recognize, is that when we do grants, any grant, water grants, health grants, economic development grants, we need to think in terms of these 8 pillars. We need to overlay these 8 pillars. So let's look at them individually. The well-functioning government is a government, as Lincoln said, of the people, by the people, and for the people. Are people involved? Is there a fair election system? Do the people have a voice in the government? And does the government help create a positive culture? What about an equitable distribution of resources? And when we're talking about distribution of resources, we're talking about income distribution. We're talking about access to healthcare, education, and all resources. Free flow of information is essential to any democracy or to any peace. It creates that transparency that's essential, that critical for the citizen engagement, and leads with good information, then we are better at making decisions. Good relations and neighbors refers to the relations between individuals, communities, and countries as well. When we think of good relations, let's compare the EU. The countries of the EU spend little money protecting themselves against their neighboring countries, as opposed to India and Pakistan that still have armies sitting on the border pointing guns at one another. So what is the relationship of the neighbors? High levels of human capital. Again, now we're talking about what is the education level of the people? What is the culture? Does the culture develop and promote education? Vocational training. What is the vocational training? Is there adequate healthcare access? Is there an acceptance of the rights of others? Referring to the formal laws that guarantee basic human rights, informal social and cultural norms that relate to behavior of citizens. Is there a commitment to the human rights and freedom of key characteristics of peaceful countries? What is the low levels of corruption? Is the high levels of corruption create a poor distribution of resource, creates civil unrest and violence, and it creates a distrust in our leaders. Sound business environment, sufficient infrastructure, public services. Sound business environment is our infrastructure that we can get product to the stores, get product to the community, get product to the market. The public services they deliver is the key to the local individuals, business competitiveness, and the conduciveness of regulatory systems. So all of these are critical, but they also work on a macro and a micro level. We think about them on a macro level, in the world level, and when we were thinking on in April, we were thinking on how can we benefit COVID? You know, what can we do to bring in world supplies? How can we shift industries into redesigning the equipments that we needed quickly and upskilling our people on the current problems? But on a micro level, what do we do about individual practices and the adaptation of new routines and new technologies? So all of these 8 pillars are critical to think of, and let's think of them in macro level, and all of our international grants, let's overlay these. How can we use these to benefit and build the power of all of our programs? So that's pretty much the story of IEP. I would ask, are there any questions?
So far, we haven't had any come in, but if anyone would like to raise their hand or put it in the chat, by all means, we are open to that.
Not hearing questions, I return control to Summer.
Well, okay. Thank you very much. I do want to give a few seconds though, in case there's any sort of burning questions that have come up with the information that Jim has shared on positive and negative peace, the pillars of positive peace. We can also open it up to answering. We've got activators here as well. Anyone?
Well, looking at our audience, it might be an interesting question to ask our audience. Who here has applied some of these? I know we have some veteran peace builders here and are familiar with the positive peace. Is there examples in your communities that you might want to share in the chat? Or if you're bold, to share out loud real quick.
I can share if you like. For
Maria.
District, for District 5080, we are planning a peace conference on February 6th for 3 hours, where we're going to be going into breakout sessions and we're going to be discussing the 8 pillars of peace. And we're very excited. There are a couple of the planners on this meeting right now today, and we're very excited to be stepping forward with this conversation that's focused on action steps that we can take, that we can bring back to our clubs, that we individually can take to activate the 8 pillars.
This is great. Have you done a peace conference or anything of this nature before?
It's brand new to us.
And fantastic, fantastic.
We have what we think is a very workable system. We've got knowledgeable facilitators, and we're going for a keynote speaker. We're going to have a keynote speaker from the Institute to introduce the idea. So yeah.
Excellent. Excellent.
Well, we sure hope, just quickly though, we'll be sharing some of the resources at the end of this. We sure hope some of the resources that we have will be of use to your conference. But very exciting to hear that you're doing that.
I have a question.
Okay.
Yes, Alan? Alan,
Yeah,
go ahead.
I just wanted to throw something out there because this whole peace thing is new to me, and I've always been kind of wondering. When you talk about, governments, Rotaries are involved in Africa and Latin America, which are 2 of the most corrupt political and social places on the face of the earth. And I'm just wondering, I'd be interested to know in the next 2 hours how far some of this can go when we have places that are just completely and utterly falling apart, including here in the United States. That's all. I just was it's more of a comment than a question, but it just be fascinated because you talked about, say, our schools. I live in Richmond, California. We have 2 high schools that most people that can afford to move out of town, so they don't have to send their children there. So you talk about institutions, and maybe it's the most peaceful time in the world right now, but I don't see that in the future. So I sort of like, hopefully that can kind of get addressed where you might see it's going, say, 5 years, 10 years from now.
Certainly, peace has never been a straight arrow. It's been up and down, but when we look at trends over a very long period of time. The other exciting thing about Africa, keep in mind where it was, after the entire continent was colonized. And then during the early and mid 1900s, those colonizations were gone. Keep in mind, every one of the African nations are made up of 40, 50, 60 different tribes, different languages. It has been a major challenge of growth and development. Some of the greatest increases have been in Africa. It still remains a challenge. It still remains a hotbed. Let's compare it to where it was in 1950. We'll help you feel better about it. And know that, yes, we see some ups and downs, and we certainly see some downs, and if that's where your focus is. But know that peace has always been a very jagged line, but trending up.
Perfect. I have a hand raised from Chris,
Yes.
and then also after that, I have another question on the chat. Go ahead, Chris.
Okay. Yeah, so the question about our involvement in positive peace. I am the new peace chair for District 5420. And I got involved in peace initially with peace fellowship interviews and so forth in our district. And then about 3 years ago, we were approached about helping sponsor a international global grant in Colombia, where we did some of the first positive peace training workshops with youth. And we did positive peace training workshops in 5 different communities in Colombia, which until 2016 had been in huge armed conflict, war. I mean, if you want to talk about how horrible South America could be, you're talking about Colombia during some of the drug wars. And yet by 2016, they'd actually come to a place where they were in negative peace. And one of the first places where Rotary and IEP actually started taking this content and the things that we're learning now through this workshop, and hopefully through future workshops, will be what those youth were taught in order to try and change things. And I think Summer and Stephanie, who actually Velasco went down as a representative of our district and participated in that workshop, can tell you that that had a huge impact in Colombia. Now, what we're doing as a district now is we've expanded our peace committee so that we're actually going to be doing positive peace training workshops in Utah. We've gotten delayed a little bit because of COVID, but we're scheduled in January for Stephanie as a peace activator to give us a weekend long peace training workshop. We are working with all of our clubs to become peace builder clubs, and we're working towards becoming a peace builder district. And those protocols were actually set up by the Rotary Action Group for Peace. So we in our district are really trying to ramp up peace to be a full-fledged committee with a lot of different activities. And I would love to hear more ideas that other people have.
Great, Chris. Thank you. Sandra, you have a question.
Well, more of a comment. Can you hear me?
Yes, it can.
Yeah, okay. More of a comment. My role in my Peace Builder Club recently has been to gather the Rotary clubs around us and pass on Peace Building 101. You know, what it is, why you should be involved, how to get involved and move on. And of course, out of this, we're getting to the place where we're going to be doing some of the things that the last lady just talked about, which is bringing our clubs together. But my point that I wanted to make was, I feel that this is a little bit like the Polio Plus thing, in that it's about the grassroots up. It's about all of us coming together and trying to create a commonality about this. And we will take that with us wherever we go. And pretty soon it's going to be like, what's the buzz? What's happening? And everybody wants to hear about it. And people want to hook into it. And people want to tap into it. And until that basically covers Rotary. And I think with Rotary taking the high profile position about peace that it has, really, I mean, I look at what I thought peace was when I became a Rotarian in the 90s, and it was one little piece of our reason for existing. And it was just kind of like one of those things we thought we did. And none of us, except for the few students that went to university, had any real peaceful type input to it. And this is just kind of pulling it into a stream that will allow all of us to hang our hat on some of it. I think the piece that we have to kind of move to, I feel myself needing to move to, is the place where you take the strategic plan, which you're going to implement by training, create some goals, and finally get some action happening, i.e. projects. And that's the place where we're going to see the difference. And it's a whole process that needs to take place so that we can actually say to this informed Rotary Club that now what are you going to do about it? And move into some serious actions that they can take that will make a difference. And first of all, in their community, I commented earlier that in my community, racism is not an issue because we don't have any races. We have white people, and we might have a couple of different languages, but we may have corrupt government. You know, so we have a lot of issues that are not the same as everyone else's. So it's really personal, and it's really kind of has to be about where you live and where you're going. But it's so grassroots, and I think that's the beauty that we have as Rotarians internationally. There, I said my piece.
Excellent share, Sandra. Thank you. And it's so critical. You're exactly right. when you look at the 8 pillars, there are certain areas that are very strong with these, but weak with these. So, and when we do the grants that you speak of, when we overlay the 8 pillars as a backdrop of are we involving all of those? So excellent sharing. Any others?
We do have a hand raised from Yale Jones.
Thank you. I'm Yale Jones from Taos, New Mexico, Peace Chair in District 5520. And I agree with, I've been to 3 or 4 World Peace Conferences, and including 2 excellent ones in Southern California that Rudy Westerfeld chaired. Thank you, Rudy. I think everything in the 8 pillars is true. Everything that has been said is true. But I also share, and I lived in Africa 2 years, I also share Alan Test's concern. And one thing that hasn't been mentioned yet is the peace. I think peace is going to spread like the COVID-19 pandemic from person to person. If we are not peaceful within ourselves, if we're not kind, if we're not empathetic, and we're not generous, all the political peace building in the world isn't going to do it. That's my opinion.
That's great, Yale. Thank you. The one thing that I did want to share and develop a little bit further, and the reason every time I go in front of a club, and I've had the opportunity of many, I always ask, do you believe peace is possible? And you know, across the board, maybe 10%. This is a very unique group, obviously, when you have the Michael Carusos and Rudy Westervelds and all of the activators. So we believe that there is a possibility. But the culture of our society does not. One of the first things we must do, in my humble opinion, is begin to change the culture. And of course, how do you change the culture? And obviously, as Scott pointed out, we first start with ourselves. And every time I go in front of a group and talk about peace, I make sure that I'm at peace. But again, this slowly will, and you're exactly right. Let's make this a pandemic for peace. And make it spread, and let's change the culture. I'm done. Who else?
All right. So just for some of you to know, we do have to be able to move on here. So we will, if you have any further questions, please put them in the chat. We will be aware of them. We will at the end have another time for Q&A. If it doesn't get answered, we do have your emails recorded in the session so we can answer them at a later time. Thank you, everyone.
Are we done?
We're almost. We're moving to a break soon. Really quickly, though, I did notice that Billy had a question about environmentalism. We're going to be covering environment and pillars of positive peace for the whole entire section 2 of this particular workshop. So I'm hoping that your question will be answered there, and if not, we can ask it at the end. There's one quick thing I wanted to add regarding all of these discussions. Again, it's so exciting to hear what everybody's doing, what they're planning to do. The question about corruption, though, I just quickly wanted to comment on that. I currently live in Mexico. I've lived in the Latin America region for 7 years. It can seem incredibly overwhelming when you encounter corruption in any society, be in any region in the world. But this really goes hand in hand with what Chris was talking about, as well as Yale, about working, you know, if you look at the problem as this gigantic, overwhelming, suffocating disease, for example, it can feel like you have no power, that there's nothing that can be done. But what we have seen through some of the positive peace workshops, it was one choice to do these, to train Rotaractors and young people who are already working in their community as peace builders, to provide training and education to those individuals who ultimately are the future. They are future leaders in their community, and they are eager to learn more, eager to make a difference. So again, does that tackle the problem at a high level and wipe it out all in one go? No, but what I like to say is you're really, through education and through Rotary programs and through training, you're looking at ways of cultivating leaders who perhaps are less corrupt, or who have, you know, this idea of peace and peace building, and who are really motivated to go out there and do something. So it's at least one way to think about planting seeds, investing in capacities, and long-term change through young people. So it's just one option. Just want to throw that out there. That's my 2 cents on that. And like we said, we want to go ahead and create plenty of space at the end. We're hoping to have more Q&A. Right now, we want to go into a break, give you a chance to stretch, move around. I think we'll do about 3-minute break. And then if we can be back here at, that would be 2:56 Pacific time, to go ahead and get started on our second section, which will be really interactive.
Hi, everyone, and I'm Patricia Shafer, and in a moment, I'll say a little bit about who I am and how it all connects to being, Rotary Peace Fellows and Rotary Positive Peace Activators and all that. I do want to say I was really listening hard and heard so many interesting questions and sort of brilliant responses. I heard the question, about peace progressing and peace regressing. And it just made me think, if you think of the Global Peace Index that comes from the Institute for Economics and Peace, and you look at Rwanda on the Global Peace Index, Rwanda has been steadily moving up in terms of its performance on the Global Peace Index, and the country works very hard at maintaining a sense of unity and healing. It is part of their practice, their culture, their mandates. I thought the example from Colombia was interesting because the transformation, so to speak, of Medellin, or so I've been told, I have not been there, is a story for us all to know about, learn about, admire, and I can see Stephanie shaking her head, so there must be some real truth to it. In contrast, I was leading a conversation this morning for Rotarians, Rotaractors, and Interactors in Lebanon, where we're going to be doing some work. And I was in Lebanon 2 years ago, and everything just felt wonderful and on the rise, and everything was moving into a new state of stability and democracy. And today they said to me, we feel like everything has happened at once. Coronavirus, we have challenges with our government and the functionality of it. We have political tensions again. Our economy has collapsed. And if you look at the United States, I remember a couple of years ago when on the Global Peace Index, the United States experienced the single biggest drop in peacefulness of any country that is measured on the Global Peace Index. And so clearly it's fluid. And I think Jim did a really good job of saying the matter of peace and peace building is fluid, though it's been a universal want for millennia. I often like to think about polio as the case of sticking with it until the impossible has been done. And I just saw statistics the other day that, they now, Rotary is reporting that that others are reporting there are about 166 identifiable cases of polio in the world. And I often think that sounds so small. Why can that be such a great challenge? And then I think of my friends in Rwanda who say, you have to be ever vigilant about peace, the same way you have to be ever vigilant about polio. And so I think with all of this energy and enthusiasm in our call tonight, obviously you're a group of people who is not only vigilant, but ambitious. I heard tonight in the video, that video about Rotary and the Institute for Economics and Peace and that partnership, the video said is about taking action to become involved in peace projects oneself or supporting others who are. I heard comments like, well, isn't it really like starting from the grassroots and building up momentum and having it expand? There's actually a retired professor at the University of Wisconsin named Dr. Ian Harris, who says the one missing piece, no pun intended, of truly having sustainable cultures of peace is that we have failed to provide community level, civically minded people with the tools and resources to build peace. So I really, as a Rotarian, a Rotary Peace Fellow, a Rotary Positive Peace Activator, the Executive Director of New Gen Peace Builders, and the Senior Fellow for Peace Education at the Alliance for Peace Building, want to say, I wholeheartedly believe that the 1.2 million people, the enormous footprint of Rotary, the 100-year history of being a voice for peace, and now putting these frameworks and tools in the hands of people at the community level is a kind of secret sauce that really can activate our communities to make a difference. And I loved hearing the story about what Stephanie is doing in Utah and all that work in District 5 something. So my job tonight is to work with our team, and there's a big team behind the scenes that you're also going to get to know in breakout sessions, to explore what it really means to operationalize the 8 pillars of peace. Because as excited as we all are about the Institute for Economics and Peace and the 8 pillars and the framework that it offers, what is true is that there have been few instances where that framework has been taken and operationalized at the community level around a real issue of concern and cataloged in such a way that somebody said it could be repeated by others. So we're going to show you tonight how you can actually conceive of operationalizing the 8 pillars of peace. And Summer alluded to this. An area that we're going to focus on is an environmental example, and that is in celebration of the environment being added is the 7th area of focus by Rotary, but also how Rotarians seem to have immediately seen it's undeniable that there's a possible intersection between environmental sustainability and peace. So that's our job, and you're going to get to be a part of it when we take you through breakout sessions where you can actually explore using the tools to think about a very particular topic and how peace and the environment intersect. So I told you a little bit about kind of the roles I play, but when you put all the things that I'm focusing on day to day together, it's really about the idea that if we train young peace builders, and we define young as 15 to 24, so we have done things like certify an entire middle school of 800 students as peace builders, and all the tools we're going to talk about tonight should be available to and used by all genders, all ages, all ethnicities, all countries. I'm going to explain why we think it's interesting for Rotarians to be supporting and be allies of young people learning to use peace building tools. And all of these images are images of young people working with Rotarians in Argentina, Ethiopia, the United States, Serbia, around putting peace building to work, okay? So the way we're going to do this is I'll talk to you for about 15 minutes, then we'll have a breakout session of about half an hour. Then we'll come back and have a wrap up on our section where we get to hear from sort of rapporteurs what went on in the breakouts, and then Summer will close tonight. So that's the journey we're on. Thank you. Jim, you did a beautiful job of explaining the 8 pillars and what's behind them. You know, what constitutes well-functioning government, what constitutes good relations with neighbors, and talking about the intersection between these pillars. And that's really beautiful. I took notes. The next time I do it, I'm gonna try and do it just like you did, because that was wonderful. So you had an overview from Summer and Jim of the 8 pillars, this notion of the 8 pillars. And as I said, it's a framework. And a professor once said to me, it doesn't matter what framework you choose, just choose one and start to use it rigorously. And I think that's the Rotary idea. How can we all start to use this framework rigorously? So let me move on here and show you a little bit about what we mean by using it rigorously. Now, before we show you how we're going to operationalize the 8 pillars together, I know from my work that when I say, oh, yes, new gen peace builders, next generation, 15 to 24, the payoff is training them to do peace projects. People form an idea in their mind of what that means. And so I know before we go on this journey together, you have to see what we mean about working with young people or people of any age to formulate peace projects. So we have about a 4.5-minute video that shows you how we think about the process of people who want to do good work, people who want to address conflict and violence, people deciding which areas of peace they want to work on, people first doing no harm by understanding the facts and the fundamentals of the issue, okay? People who figured out what peace project they want to work on and now they have to go about it, and then people who have to report their results. What does that journey look like? So we have this brief little video for you to give you a taste of peace building.
Many of the world's great peace leaders have pointed at the potential of young people. So, in February 2020, hopes ran high in greater Metro Charlotte, North Carolina, when 63 students from 20 high schools became the newest group to embark on the journey to become certified New Gen Peace Builders. To be certified, Participants complete intensive learning workshops to understand drivers of conflict and peace, and then design and complete team action peace projects in at least one of these areas: awareness, service, advocacy, or philanthropy. The Greater Metro Charlotte group had just finished peace project planning in 8 teams. All systems were go. And then COVID-19 spread on a global scale. They faced this question: how can we work on peace projects with closed schools and stay-at-home restrictions? Incredibly, all 8 teams adapted, persevered, and used new virtual skills to do so. Here are highlights from 4 of the 8 projects that share one thing in common: a belief in education as an essential pathway to peace. A growing number of teenagers are expressing their fears that climate change threatens their future, and their frustrations are not taken seriously. In 2015, the United States EPA and USDA announced a 2030 goal to reduce food waste, landfill waste, and carbon emissions by 50%. The Lighter Footprints team discovered that U.S. school cafeterias serve nearly 5 billion lunches every year in ways that add to the carbon footprint. So, the team partnered with Houston-based Footprint app and California-based Edible Schoolyards to develop an e-food feature that helps students advocate for sustainable food choices and lesson plans to make available to high schools in all 50 states. Data from the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics indicates that the majority of the 20 fastest-growing occupations between 2018 and 2028 will require completion of challenging science, technology, engineering, and math classes, or STEM. The All In for STEM team members realized that nearly all of them have a passion for STEM in common. They researched differences across race and ethnicity in who chooses STEM classes and careers, and learned that the earlier children experience engaging activities, the better. Children in low-income minority schools often miss out on these experiences. The team partnered with Heal Charlotte, a community-building nonprofit started in 2016 after protests in the city turned violent, with racial inequity at the core of the conflict. Team members designed and delivered STEM learning kits and delivered virtual lessons to young people in households served by Heal Charlotte. The No More Hotspots team focused on human trafficking of minors and learned that the state of North Carolina mandates schools to provide awareness instruction on human trafficking and sexual assault. But classroom content is not easily available or useful. Guided by an educator familiar with state education standards, the team developed an extensive human trafficking learning unit for high schools and a plan to present it to their local county board of education and the North Carolina Education Legislative Committee. Their bigger goal: a multidisciplinary unit available for use by high schools during Human Trafficking Awareness Month. It's been noted during the COVID-19 crisis that immigrants are at higher risk because many work in essential business service roles. Most official websites on COVID-19 protection measures are in English only, and protective face masks are not widely available to immigrant communities. The Helping Hands for Humanity team members from East Charlotte, the most diverse area of the city, were sensitive to the disparity. The team translated government COVID-19 postings into a multiple language website, recruited volunteers to sew protective masks and attach information about the website, collected donations to fund the effort, and partnered with local nonprofits serving refugees and immigrants to distribute the masks and information. These New Gen Peace Builders focus on what they care about, test their concerns with data, listen to community members, and become equipped to build bridges for the rest of their lives.
Okay, so by the way, the legislators who actually passed the educational mandate in North Carolina that human trafficking awareness had to be taught in health classes, and the students who figured out that it wasn't being taught in classes is actually supporting and endorsing that team of students to bring their education curricula into schools in Charlotte, North Carolina this year during Human Trafficking Awareness Month. So we love this because in his most famous, one of his most famous speeches of all time, past president, former president John F. Kennedy said, "Peace is a process and a way of solving problems, and each new generation needs to define it." So that is the challenge for all of you as Rotarians and Rotarians who care about peace. It's a process and a way of solving problems, and each new generation has to define it. All right, so now you've got a sense of what we think of when we think about operationalizing peace and operationalizing the 8 pillars of peace. In February 2019, a big idea emerged. We did an Accelerator Summit of New Gen Peace Builders in Houston, Texas, the third largest city in the country, the most diverse city in the country. And for those of you who aren't aware, demographics predict, or those who follow demographics predict, that 1 in 6 Americans will live in Texas in the year 2030. So a big idea emerged. Students given the opportunity identified 5 issues, okay? And the 5 issues they said they wanted to work on were gun violence, intolerance, hunger, homelessness, and the environment. It was the first time we really heard the environment come up with students, as it was so obvious to them that the environment was a peace issue. And during the course of that program, they learned that Houston is one of the most polluted cities in the United States. It's more densely polluted in particular parts of the city that happen to be low income with large minority populations who live near the ship channels. And it was their first encounter with the intersection of environment, pollution, climate change, and what you might call environmental justice. Since then, we've seen an acceleration. There is not a group that we do peace education training with who doesn't bring up the environment. And so that's why we've chosen to focus on that topic with you tonight. In fact, we did a training session early in the year with Rotarians, and we had teachers from Ethiopia who somehow got into the session and were asking us about how to get content to address environmental issues in Ethiopia. Indeed, the Prime Minister there has launched a giant tree planting project as one of his paths to peace. By the way, he is a Nobel Peace Prize winner with a PhD in conflict resolution and peace building. Okay, so we noticed it just kept coming up. And of course, the presence of Greta and her voice has vastly accelerated the conversation, especially with young people. 5 years ago, we would hear human rights was the #1 issue with people in the age group 15 to 24 when we asked them about peace. Now they say environment, human rights, or human rights as an environment as a human rights issue and a generational justice issue. Okay, so it's accelerating. And in fact, if you were to look at news articles, do a search for the last 6 months, the number of companies that are getting more and more vocal about their responsibility in this arena is incredible. And we had a call with Hewlett Packard about that just today. So, on the upswing. Here we go. There's no turning back. And indeed, the more we looked, the more we heard voices talking about environmental justice. This gentleman did an amazing TED Talk in which he makes the case that one of the reasons the wrong side of the tracks is usually the east side of cities, wherever you are in the world. He says, he studied it, is because the way the earth rotates and the way the winds blow, there was a time when people intentionally put factories, sources of pollution on the east side of the city. And that was where people who were low income and often minorities were guided, redlined, encouraged to, forced to live. And he makes a very strong case. It's only about a 7-minute video. Watch it as a TED Talk. It makes you think. So we kept seeing these patterns. And so sure enough, tonight, we want to help you work on this question of, well, what is environmental justice? And how do you use the 8 pillars to think about environmental justice? This gentleman is Ed Pettit. He is getting his PhD in environmental policy and urban planning, environmental planning, policy and urban planning in Houston. He is the head of Rotaract there. He's the president of Rotaract. And he turned us on to something that he created and believes in strongly, called this his own citizen participation toolkit around issues of environmental justice, but issues of urban heat islands. And he turned us on and helped us understand that the number of urban areas in this country where the temperatures are rising dramatically faster than in suburban and rural areas is growing. The consequence of these urban heat islands not being addressed is that there are health effects, there are economic effects. And one of the greatest things we can do as environmental peace builders, if you want to find yourself in that category, is start as an active citizen to understand if you live in an urban heat island and what you can do about it. So quick video here. It's a kind of a cheeky little video, but it tees up the question, what do we mean when we say environmental justice?
Okay, so this is a city. Here are all the people living in it, people of all different colors, ages, wealths, and incomes. Except they don't all live together in the same place. They're separated into different parts of the city by what color they are, what language they speak, and how much money they have. And those different parts of the city look quite different. The parts that are whiter and wealthier tend to have green spaces, grocery stores with nutritious organic food, and of course some money to buy it, and are often far away from pollution-emitting freeways. The parts that are poorer and more diverse tend to have industrial sites, heavy-duty diesel-polluted ports and highways, and hazardous waste, all things that the city relies on to run properly, but that heavily pollute the air and water. And even if they had those grocery stores with nutritious organic food, most residents there couldn't afford it anyway. How did this happen? Well, this segregation can be traced back to race-based zoning and housing policies, but it wasn't always as deliberate as plain old racism. Some separations can simply be traced to poor land use planning. And as a result, these residents of the same city live very different lives. Say the city realizes it has an emissions problem. It comes up with a plan to reduce air pollution, plant more trees to suck up the carbon, or start a cap and trade program. But those trees get planted in the neighborhoods that are already green, and the factories that are spewing toxins into the air just buy more carbon offsets and keep spewing their toxins. The benefits of these programs are enjoyed by the communities that are already doing just fine, and the communities that were hurting most from all that air pollution, well, they're still hurting. This isn't just an imaginary city, this is the story of real cities all across the US where people might live in the very same area code, but their race, ethnicity, or wealth and income bracket causes them to experience wildly different quality of air, water, and life. In fact, it can even mean that they also experience different deaths. That's how serious this stuff is. This kind of inequity expands far beyond cities, too. Rural areas are full of commercially valuable resources like oil and coal, and they're also home to indigenous and low-income communities. But when those resources are extracted, those communities don't see any of the money, and they end up with all the air and water contamination that's left over from the extraction. And we even see this injustice on a global level, like in small island nations that are forced to directly confront the consequences of rising sea levels, but haven't played any significant role in the industries that are causing climate change. These peoples are sometimes forced to flee their homes because their land is literally going underwater. But the very states that did play a hand in creating climate change don't have migration policies to accommodate them. So when we talk about environmental justice, we're talking about how we can try to break down and reimagine a system that's built up on these inequities. A system where those who are already disadvantaged because of their race and economic status are made poorer because they're unable to profit from the resources that the world depends on, and are made sick or worse by the environmental contamination that comes with extracting those resources. Social inequities are intimately tied to the environment. That's why social justice is an environmental issue too.
Okay. So as I said, it's an intentionally provocative and cheeky video, but I think they've designed it that way to make us stop and think. Just really stop and think and have very difficult conversations. And so those 8 pillars. So Jim did a great job of describing those 8 pillars to you. I want to tell you about the breakouts that you're about to go and participate in. So we have breakout facilitators who are ready to work with you around this question of environmental justice and urban heat islands. What's going on? What are these urban heat islands? What are the facts? Not opinions, not cheekiness, not provocativeness. What are the facts? And so let me give you 2 examples of factoids that you're going to see in these breakouts and be exposed to. Oh, intra-urban, so inside urban heat islands, are due to uneven distribution of heat-absorbing trees and greenery. Differences result from disparities in community planning and development. In other words, some areas are more green than others because that's how the city planning and development takes place. All right, studies. And these are all taken from deep analyses, primary research sources, studies of 10 million students who took PSATs, so the pre-SAT, showed that differences in heat exposure explained 5% of the racial achievement gap. Similar effects were noted in 3rd to 8th graders. In other words, what the factoids are saying is they studied what happens when the temperatures rise in a particular year? Which students taking tests are affected? And what they discovered is, if you're in a low income, primarily Black public high school in an urban heat island, your scores went down demonstrably. But if you were in a suburban setting or a school with adequate air conditioning and so on, your scores stayed the same. So it's a tracking of what is the impact. So these are the kinds of factoids that you're going to get a chance to see and work with. More than 2, by the way. And so here's how we're going to do this. You'll get a chance. We're going to say 30 minutes, though I know we were already trying to make up a little time. So I'm going to change the rules and say 25 minutes. Your breakout facilitators will give you a very quick opportunity to introduce yourselves, very quick. Then you will look at factoids that are lined up around these 8 pillars that relate to urban heat islands. So you'll actually see 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, and then there's 1 pillar where there's 1 factoid. Your facilitators will help you stamp the factoids from your own perspective. What are the most significant for you and what are the most resonant for you? Significant meaning very impactful. You think that's important. Resonant meaning it touches you, it stands out. And then as a group, you're going to come to looking at the numbers of stamps, some level of resolution around which seem to be the most significant, which seem to be the most resonant. And then your facilitators will give you a chance to, looking at that pattern, do a little quick project idea brainstorming. Knowing this now, if you could, and maybe based on your own experience, name a possible peace project, just brainstorm, what would it be? So that's the process. And Elizabeth, do you want to say anything else, or Stephanie or Summer, to help people head to their breakout rooms?
Sure, I'll just say for about 30 seconds, you will be using the annotation tool in Zoom, and your breakout facilitators are going to show you how to get to that. But if you don't have your screen set to full screen mode, that's going to be helpful and make it a lot easier. I've also set the breakout so they're going to pull you into rooms automatically. So if you've never done a Zoom breakout before, which is less likely at this point than it was 4 months ago, it's going to be a little strange because you're going to leave here, be spit into a breakout room. It'll take about 30 seconds and then your facilitators will get rolling. So you won't have to do anything. You don't have to hit any buttons. You just have to sit and be taken into your breakout. There'll be a couple of us here in the main room, and the chat will still be up if anybody runs into any issues. And so with that, I am going to send everyone away. Have fun.
25 minutes, so we'll do it. It's 30. Yep. We'll give you the guide, but it's not 30, it's 25.
Yep.
All right. So I just wanted to say welcome back. I hope you enjoyed the experience and getting a taste of how you start to take facts, set them against the 8 pillars of peace, and start to work an issue. I want to give a shout out to the Footprint app team. There's a team of people who are here doing breakout facilitation with us from the company, the organization Footprint App Inc., which is doing amazing work in terms of sustainability. We had New Gen Peace Builders alumni, Rotary Peace Fellows, all helping out. So, and Peace Activators. So thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm going to turn it back to Summer here. Just 2 quick notes. Again, what we're trying to emphasize here is that as a consequence of pollution, climate change, we have rising temperatures that are rising faster in metropolitan areas where about 80% of the US population lives now. And you're in the big West. So I wanted to point out that a number of cities that get pointed to as cities that are hot and getting hotter are cities like Albuquerque, Boise, Denver, Las Vegas, Los Angeles, Phoenix, Portland, Sacramento, San Diego, Seattle, Tucson. So these are real issues everywhere, but certainly in those cities. How do you take this work and start to work on it fast and hard and ambitiously? I love Stephanie's example of she's going to work with Rotarians for 2 days straight over a weekend to work on positive peace, because we're actually trying out a model of doing an environmental peace-a-thon that allows, starting with interactors and rotaractors and Rotarians working together, how do you spend 2 days understanding peace, understanding positive peace, understanding the issues of environmental peace and justice, and then brainstorming project ideas that you can go to work on. That said, our facilitators are going to put notes from their experiences with you in the breakouts in the chat, and Summer is graciously going to make sure that those notes in the chat go out when she sends out the recording and content from this session to you. So thank you for the opportunity, and Summer, back to you.
Okay. Thank you so much, Patricia, Elizabeth, Stephanie, NewGen, Footprint, all of you. Thank you so much for really taking over the breakout sessions, making them happen. We're really excited to be able to offer something that's interactive and engaging, and to delve a bit deeper into this idea of positive peace through an environmental lens. Like Patricia said, I'm going to do my best to share all of this information afterwards. For those of you who are really, really keen to get the information, feel free to drop your email in the chat box, and that way I will make sure, doubly sure, to get you the information. So just quickly to wrap up, we're coming towards the end of our session. We want to make sure that we provide you some more tools, some of the core tools of the Rotary IEP partnership that you yourselves can use in order to communicate, promote, talk about positive peace. So Stephanie is going to share a link to these tools in the chat box, as well as a document. This will also be included in an email when we send it out, so you'll definitely be covered. Really quickly, I'm showing some of these tools in the PowerPoint slide. I'm going to quickly talk about them. For those of you who may not be familiar with positive peace, or even after today you think I want to learn more, I always recommend Rotarians and Rotaractors start with the Rotary Positive Peace Academy. It's an online learning platform. It is completely free, and it takes about 2 to 3 hours to complete. You can work at your own pace, so highly recommend that. Once you've completed the Academy, you can join the IEP Ambassadors Facebook group to connect with other Academy graduates. This can also be a really great space to talk about projects and actions. So in terms of tools for you to do, say, your own presentations or to lead discussions about this, you can start off with the video that I showed at the beginning of the session. It's linked here. And additionally, that can be a lead into a pre-made PowerPoint presentation and facilitator guide that we have. This is available on the Rotary IEP Partnership webpage for download. And then if you're interested in a more deeper training on positive peace, you might want to consider conducting your own workshop. So this is similar to what was talked about with the workshops in Colombia, large-scale positive peace workshops. Based on a series of these workshops in Mexico and Colombia in 2019, we've developed a curriculum. This was also mentioned in the video. So the Positive Peace in Action guide is based on these events, and it basically provides a detailed guide for Rotarians to carry out their own workshops. This guide is available for download on the Rotary IEP Partnership webpage. Now, we do highly recommend that if you're thinking about doing a workshop, that you consider working with, say, an activator or someone that has been trained in this sort of work. Like we said, we have 4 activators here today. You've seen Patricia in action with NewGen. There are many resources out there who are professionally trained in this. We highly recommend working with them. And in that sense, if you are interested in connecting with an activator, the activators here today, I'll be sharing their contact information at the end, but you're also welcome to contact me, and I'm the person who can connect you to any of the activators in our US and Canada cohort. So we do hope that these tools are useful for you, and hopefully they help accomplish our goal that we mentioned at the beginning of the workshop, which was to provide you 5 ways of talking about positive peace in your community, club, or district. So as we finish up here, we would like to find out a little bit from you really quickly how you might see yourself using what you've seen and learned today. We mentioned earlier we'd use AHA slides, but considering that we have about 50 people on the call right now, we're more than happy to just let people chime in. Was there anything that resonated? Any sort of tool or material that you thought, yeah, I could actually use this? We're excited to hear quickly from a few of you if you want to share how you might see yourself using what you've seen and learned today. I'd say feel free to just speak up.
Summer, this is Janice, and I am currently using the video, but there were a couple of the other activator tools that I can add to the video content and then bring it down to the district level. So thank you.
Awesome. That's good to hear, Janice. Thank you for sharing. So I know Maria mentioned that she's got a workshop. Okay, yes?
This is just Roger. I'm not saying what I'm going to do, but I was blown away by the video of the students and how they divided up into different groups and what they actually did. I mean, that was so inspiring, and I assume I can get a hold of that. Thank you.
Awesome. It is inspiring.
Summer, this is Bill. Earlier this year, I received an email from you or whoever it was about the Activator program that's coming up. Has that been filled yet, or is that?
For the US and Canada cohort?
Yes, there was a Activator program that was scheduled for this fall. I don't remember exactly the dates, but.
Yeah, so we've trained the US and Canada activators, and 4 of them are here, and we are training Latin America. So we're not at this moment seeking, we're not able to open it up to new trainees, but we are happy to connect people to the activators that have been trained.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and we have time maybe for one more. Did anything resonate with people here? They say, I've got a new tool. I'm very excited.
I do want to address one question that actually came in earlier, and it does go similar to what was just asked from Bill. Are we going to take on Nigeria?
We will be doing activator training in the future in that region, but I definitely think there's a lot of room there for projects and action. So maybe if there's someone else here on the call that's interested in that particular area, or you're working in Nigeria, this would be a great way to connect. So we are actually at time, and so I want to be really conscious of ending on time. I personally said I'll stick around a little bit afterwards if there's any questions or people want to chat. But just as we finish up, we've provided a lot of information today, a lot of tools. We really want this to be a call to action to you all, to use at least one of the tools we've shared with you today in the next month. As Rotarians and Rotaractors, you are in a unique position to bring Rotary's peace work to your community. It's always something that I say to end talks, but it's one thing to build a well or a school, but it's really another to invest in building peace. So we hope the materials and information we provided you today gives you an idea of where you can start. So please feel free to let us know if we can help you in any way. We're more than willing and more than happy to. We'll leave our contact information here, and I'll also be in touch afterwards with all of the materials and information from the session. Thank you so very much. Thank you to all the facilitators, all of the presenters, our tech support, and thank you to you as participants for attending.